Okay, Stephen Parker. Firstly, an apology because I'm wearing my dressing gown because I've just come out of the bath after having done a workout and I'm nice and clean now, okay? But secondly, Stephen Parker, okay? On this channel, I go by the name Nick Dutch, and that's what you will call me. Is that clear? Alright, I'm not going to react or, whatever to any other name. Okay, I'm known as Nick Dutch on this channel, that's what you'll call me. Secondly, on the subject of the astral projection experiments, I think you ought to think carefully as to the phenomena you're trying to test. From what you described, I've tried to provide you with some feedback in the comment sections, yes, but from what you've described, I don't think you understand the phenomena. You're looking at this from someone who hasn't actually experienced the phenomena itself, and therefore has jumped to a certain conclusion based upon other people's presuppositions and hard truth claims, which is always problematic when you're dealing with something which can't necessarily be pinned down in the same way. I've wanted the ultimate empirical experiment for a long period of time. I've tried to do experimentation myself that would try and make it totally empirical, but I just can't do it. This is the conclusion I've come to, so that's why I don't go around saying that, if you burn a yellow candle on a Tuesday afternoon, then all of a sudden you'll win the national lottery, because essentially that's a load of bollocks. What I do say is that under some strange circumstances, some strange things happen. But you've got to know what those strange circumstances are, and to be able to try and bring them about as reliably as you can. And even when you can bring them about that reliably, there may always be other factors which are in place which can get in the way. When I tried to do astral projections deliberately, let's say one particular night, I was all G'd up, right, tonight I'm going to do it, this is going to be the night, yes, I'm also in the zone, so to speak. Hey presto, nothing happened. Or if it did happen, I wasn't aware of it, my target wasn't aware of it either, and I thought to myself, no, bugger, shucks, maybe I'm deluding myself all along. And then there's other nights in which I wasn't planning on doing an astral projection, and hey presto, I would have the full astral projection symptoms as laid down in the projection of the astral body, written by Sylvan Muldoon and Harewood Carrington, and I actually on those nights did things like sharing dreams with people. Now the way it seems to work is that thought can communicate better with thought than thought can communicate better with the physical. All right, so it's easier for me in this way of looking at things, for me to have a telepathic experience with someone when in the dream stroke projection state, than to have an actual, hey, I'm walking down the street and it's whatever, and I see a poodle that's been dyed pink. Oh, isn't that odd? And then I sort of zoom back to my body, and then hey presto, I hear that someone else saw a poodle that was dyed pink further later in the same part of the road where I happen to be in the astral body, or whatever, that sort of thing. So we're dealing with a phenomenon which is difficult to control. Getting into the meditative state itself and trying to do it purely through meditation is, the way I see it, a lighter level of projection experience than when you're doing it through the body being completely catatonic and being completely like in a sleep state with none of the motor connections between the brain and the body functioning. So your body is completely zonked out, just like you would be if you were in like a really, really, really deep sleep, but your mind is awake. That's a very difficult thing to engineer and to orchestrate. And so there's always going to be things getting in the way. Physical things. Have you had too much tea or coffee? Have you had food which disagreed with you? Does your level of consciousness need to be slightly higher, namely not deep enough to go into a proper deep sleep, because you're concentrating on your digestive system, for instance, trying to make sure your food goes down rather than coming all the way back up again, if you get my drift. There can be like millions of biochemical or biological or psychological things which can affect it. Have you had a terrible argument with someone earlier on that day, and is that still with you? Are you mentally or emotionally or intellectually still dealing with issues from your past or your adolescence, and is that suddenly for some reason coming back to your consciousness and you're struggling to deal with that rather than getting on with the process of getting a good night's sleep? Have you developed a new allergy to, let's say in my case, dust mites, because I've got a very severe dust mite allergy at the moment? Which can also interfere with your ability to rest anyway, as well as your ability to focus on things associated with astral projection. For instance, the rising sensation, trying to go through the intellectual and visualization process of separating your center of awareness, so to speak, because like right now I'm aware I'm inside my head. I feel like I am inside my head, okay? But you've got to like disassociate yourself away from that to try and convince yourself that the I am, which is what you are, is not in the physical, and to do that in a meditative state, which is just at the right brainwave frequency or the right state of mind to be able to create that kind of like separation, as well as to maintain awareness once you're going through this state of mind. But the feeling of floating upwards is actually terrifying. Alright, if you're conscious and you feel the floating upwards, it will frighten you. Alright, so if you can't deal with that, which sometimes you can and sometimes you can't, then you'll go straight back into your physical and you won't be able to do the projection in the first place. Now, from what you're describing, you want to do this with a symbol that's placed in an envelope. Now, that doesn't come under the classification of a astral projection experience. That comes more under remote viewing, or an attempt to attempts to read via some other form of ESP. So it's not necessarily to do with separating the consciousness from the body. Because when you do finally have an astral projection, you are literally, or seem like you are literally, some kind of like gassy blob, and like your hand can go through the desk, and you can try and walk through a wall, and it feels like you're a mass of steam trying to squeeze its way through a net, and you hear this noise as you try and push yourself through a wall, and it's all rather weird. But what you can't do is like reach for the telephone and pick it up. What you can't do is like reach for an envelope and pick it up. What you can't do is necessarily place your hand over an envelope and read what's inside the envelope when you're out in the astral or spirit body. It just doesn't happen like that. So I don't quite know why you want to have a symbol placed in an envelope. What you might be better off doing is finding someone who you can do meditation with, and then do a type of telepathy experiment. Obviously someone you like, someone you trust, someone you're comfortable with. Because if there's like, oh my god, what kind of person is this going on? Then your defenses go up, and your ability to actually do that telepathic experience shuts right down. And it becomes more like a psychological remote attack scenario going on, when you're basically trying to telepathically make each other feel more uncomfortable, as well as putting up shields left, right, and centre to try and block, whatever it is they're throwing at you, or seem to be throwing at you. This is all speculation based upon the strange experiences, yes, but this is the way it seems to be. Now, what is it that makes you think that a symbol placed in an envelope can actually be perceived by the spirit body? Now, I've heard stories from other people who are projectors, and I've had experiences very similar to this. This one lady I met when I was doing the psychic fair circuit many years ago, and she said that she was invited by a friend who was also a very, very gentle sort of new agey spiritualist. They were both very sort of fairy, airy fairy type people. Anyway, she went to do this astral projection over a period of a few weeks. She couldn't quite get it right during the first few, then all of a sudden, bam, she was able to do it. And she went for a walk around their house, and then sort of came back next day, phoned her up and says, oh, I'll tell you what I saw, and described the way that the house used to look like prior to the furniture being moved. So when things are in a place for a long period of time, and I have had experiences very similar to this as well, which basically makes me think that yeah, there's some truth to this in some way. When something's been in a place for a long period of time, it's kind of like there, okay? It's not just there physically. It leaves a record in the consciousness blobs of whatever the fuck it is. It's all around the universe, okay? Or maybe it's because when people are used to something being somewhere, that leaves an impression, or maybe the astral projection isn't actually an astral projection. It's reading the impressions left by other people's minds in various different places, or actually you're doing a massive global consciousness sort of like telepathy experiment in reality, and it's nothing to do with actually leaving your physical body. There's all kinds of ways in which you can look at this. But if something's been around for a long period of time, it's left some kind of record there, and then when you do project, it's more likely that you'll be seeing things in that one particular way. Because that's just the way it seems to be. Now, why that is, I don't know. Now, people will say all kinds of things because they'll have their own personal theology about, what the fuck an astral projection experiment or experience is really about, or what the spirit body's about, or the layers of the aura, or The layers of spirit, and yes, different planes, yes, yes. And other fucked up, brain dead, unintellectual, badly planned out thinking. Oh, dear. But, do you see where I'm coming from here? You know, if you're trying to make... If you're testing one particular phenomena, you've got to have an experiment which is designed to test that one particular phenomena. And therefore you've got to understand it first in order to be able to test it. Because at the moment it looks like what you're doing is you're just looking at other people's conclusions as to what they think an astral projection is and saying, therefore, okay, well, we'll test that. When basically that's not the case at all. Okay, well, there's no point in testing somebody else's straw man conclusion that they've jumped to because of their interpretation of what the experience is about. Now, I'm a believer in the strange experience. I'm not necessarily a believer in planes or angels or ghosts or demons or whatever fucking else. I'm a experimenter into the experience. Because the experience is real. I've had the experience. I'll therefore turn around to you and say, this is the experience I've had. You can call me a fucking weirdo whack job if you want, but the fact of the matter is, this is the experience I've had. What it means, I don't know. You don't know. They don't know. They say they know because they've got their own particular hypotheses based upon their own experiments or research or whatever, but new things are being discovered all the time, and 97% of the universe is unknown dark matter anyway. So, you know... So, Stephen, what are you trying to actually look at? What are you actually trying to experiment with? Alright? Because it looks to me as if you're setting yourself up not just for a failure in the experiment, but you're setting yourself up for a failure for all kinds of experiments if you want to do more. Because, you know, you don't know what... You're looking at this from other people's points of view, and that's no good. Okay. You got to play around with it first, and you've got to have experimented with the experience and say, okay, well, this is the experience I can have now. What can I do with it? It's a different way of looking at the same problem. But turning around and saying that I'm going to create this kind of like JREF style experiment. You're never going to get a success with it, because I don't think you can. And then there's also other, you know, there's the other issues like stress of desire. If you want it too much, you can be too physically awake when you're trying to go to sleep, and so you can't get out of your body. There's the other stress of desire of when you're testing yourself all the time, which doesn't actually help, because you've got to like let the intellectual processes of sorts go and just be able to go with the flow when you're doing it. So doing it under a test condition or a laboratory condition is very difficult, at, you know, at best. So again, I'm not quite sure what you're trying to test, and I think that you don't understand the phenomenon, and I think that you need to go back to the projection of the astral body by Maldon and Carrington, not because you have to agree with his interpretation of what the spirit body is. I mean, I don't know. You know, he's got his interpretation based upon his experiences, but I don't see the point in even having an interpretation in the first place. I see the point in having the experience. Okay, I'm sorry if I've come over a bit strong in this video, but, you know, you're someone who should know about this stuff by now, okay? You really should start knowing about this stuff by now. Keep cool. Love your videos. Everybody subscribe to Stephen Parker. Play cool.